The Gospel of John. We don't hear that very much on Sundays, even though it's a very long gospel. If you read any of the big newspapers, the first section is always the news. What happened overnight, what happened yesterday, here or there. And you get deep into the newspaper and you begin to get the commentaries on what happened. Different authors are telling you their explanation or their understanding of what's going on. And that's pretty much what I think the Gospel of John is. After all, the first three Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, were written relatively soon after the resurrection. The Christians gathered on Sunday like we're still doing, and they didn't read Gospels. They talked about their experience of Jesus. And then, of course, as they began to die out, there were less experiences to talk about, and somebody began to write it all down, where we get Matthew, Mark, and Luke. But John was written perhaps even 100 years after the resurrection. So he's trying to give an explanation of what he knew his congregation already knew, the details of Jesus' life. This gospel appears today in the midst of Lent, precisely because what Lent is all about is baptism. This gospel is filled with ideas of water and all the things that water can do, refreshing, saving life. The first reading was the same about all the things that God did on the Exodus, which of course is a model of our life going to God, leaving one place and going to another, leaving our past behind and living the life of a baptized person. So it's presented to the whole church as a critique, a tool for critiquing our own baptismal life. Am I living my baptismal life to the full, or is baptism just a memory of something that happened a long time ago, for some of us, a long, long time ago? Because baptism isn't just an event. It's entering into a new way of life, like the Israelites entered going out of Egypt into a new way of life with God. And so the details of John's gospel are to be pondered, thought about. And it's not wrong to use your imagination when you read the scriptures. To place yourself in the scene, to say to yourself, well, how am I reacting? How would I react then? How am I reacting now to the experience of my own baptismal life? Just one example. The woman here, as soon as she talks to Jesus, she goes off to town and tells everybody about it. That's witness, which is exactly what is expected of a baptized person. Doesn't mean going and telling everybody. It means living the baptismal life fully, which means letting Jesus live his life through ours, where we are today in this world, in our times. And that's something we could all critique ourselves for, because we all do it more or less well. Sometimes we're overwhelmed by the culture and the ideas and the prejudices of our own period, and we let them dominate the way we interact with each other, or our nation interacts with other nations. And so what we see happening is we may be calling ourselves disciples of Jesus, but we could be not living out the life of Jesus, which is exactly what we're called to do. Water is always a sign of change in the Bible. The flood, the Exodus through the Red Sea. To be baptized is to be plunged into the water and to have a brush with death and then raised up. I wish we'd get back to that, because this dribbling becomes washing. And baptism, I guess, is a sense of washing, since it obliterates our past sins, but it means dying with Christ, going down into the tomb. In St. Joe's University in Pennsylvania, the baptismal font, you walk down into it and up out of the water on the other side, which is very symbolic of what baptism is. So as we read the gospel, we who are already disciples, some for a long, long time, it's a time for us to critique ourselves. How have the waters of baptism changed my relationship, the way I react or act with other people or with the situations of my own life? Do I follow the example of Jesus? Because that's the model. Imitation of the way Jesus reacted with people, responded to people, is the call of baptism. How we respond to the situations where God has permitted us to go in the course of our life. So Lent is not just about doing penance, but it's about change where change is needed.